In college, during spring break, fall break, or even on long weekends, many students travel or they go on vacation, and they might not necessarily take that time to go home. They might go somewhere else. However, winter break is different because not only is it longer than any other break during the school year, but most people do return home to spend time with family for the holiday season. Now, for students who have been away, it's really exciting to reunite with old friends, catch up on everyone's lives, what's going on, who's dating who, and that's exactly what Brianna Dennison was doing when she returned home after being away at college. After being away all semester, she met up with some friends to go out partying, like so many college kids do. Now, at the end of their night, they made their way back to their friend's house to crash. However, the next morning, Brianna wasn't on the couch where she fell asleep, and what was there instead made her friends instantly panic. Brianna Dennison's story is a terrifying reminder that making it home from a night out doesn't always guarantee that you're safe. Hey guys, I'm Annie Elise. This is 10 to Life. Let's jump right in. So guys, despite what it may look like with the tattoos or what I talk about day to day, I hate confrontation. It might surprise you, but when it comes to like negotiating or canceling a service, I avoid it at all costs, which has made me keep subscriptions longer than I should, which I never even use, pay higher for bills than I probably should be paying, and ultimately just waste money. But thank goodness I found Rocket Money, who is here to help, who also happens to be today's sponsor. You see, Rocket Money is the personal finance app that helps you cancel subscriptions, lower your bills, and just manage your money better. Now for me, personally, my love affair with Rocket Money started out with my subscriptions. I have so many one-time app downloads and subscriptions that I now have still over a year later, and it's just the worst. I didn't even know I had half of these guys. But Rocket Money safely and securely identifies these reoccurring charges and then cancels the unwanted subscriptions for you. You can even cancel from within the app with just a couple of taps, so there's no need to worry about customer service calls, facing those super uncomfy conversations. It's just so easy. So easy, in fact, that Rocket Money has helped save its customers an average of $720 a year, with over $500 million in canceled subscriptions. Now, what sealed the deal for me with Rocket Money, and that Rocket Money is my absolute soulmate, is that they also help me lower my monthly bills, the ones that I didn't have them cancel. You see, by simply uploading a photo of your bill and tapping a few buttons, Rocket Money will negotiate your bills for you, from internet service to cable to phone bills, you name it. Which, I mean, who doesn't want to save money and save on things that you don't even remember you have? Like my Sling subscription from 8 months ago when I wanted to watch the VPR reunion on Eastern time because I wanted to watch what was going down with Scandival. Which I get it, that might just be me, maybe it's you, I don't know, maybe we can bond over that. But anyways, try Rocket Money out and you will not be sorry. To try Rocket Money and unlock even more features with premium, head to rocketmoney.com/10tolife or just click that link in the video description. I'm telling you, you'll save that cash money and you won't regret it. Now, to everyone that knew her, 19-year-old Brianna Zunino Dennison was affectionately known as Bree. She was born on March 29th, 1988 to her parents Jeff and Bridget, and she grew up with her younger brother Brighton. They lived in Reno, Nevada, and the Dennisons were a very tight-knit, loving family. And Bree and Brighton's childhood started out pretty perfect. That was until 1994, when an absolute tragedy struck the family. When she was only 6 years old, Bree's father, Jeff, passed away at the age of 34. He had taken his own life after his business was being investigated on federal embezzlement charges. Now, despite this unexpected and absolutely traumatic way of losing their dad, her mother, Bridget, worked hard to provide Bree and Brighton with a normal and happy childhood. After Jeff's passing, the family relocated to Bridget's hometown, Mendocino, California. There, Bree was surrounded by relatives who adored her and Brighton, and they developed an even stronger bond as a family with their extended family. Bree was often referred to as Breezy by her mom, who said that she reminded her of a breath of fresh air on a cool summer day, so what better nickname than Breezy? Now, although everybody, including friends and family, called Brianna Bree for short, she also had another nickname, because Bree was often referred to as Breezy by her mom. The reason why is her mom said that she just reminded her of a breath of fresh air on a cool summer day, so she would oftentimes just call her Breezy. Now, before her freshman year, Bree and her family moved back to Reno, where she would attend high school. After graduating in 2006, Bree left home to attend Santa Barbara City College in California, where she would pursue a degree in child psychology. Bree also loved to travel, and by 19 years old, she had already accumulated several stamps on her passport. She caught the travel bug after studying abroad in Rome for a year with her family, and although she enjoyed exploring all sorts of destinations, she had a particular love for the beach. This is also why she decided to go to Santa Barbara for school. Now, in order to keep that beachy vibe that she loved around her all the time, she decorated her bedroom with photos of palm trees and even had pineapple-shaped lamps in her room. Just tried to always be surrounded by the beach. Bree also had an infectious sense of humor, and she was the life of the party wherever she went. She had a very close circle of friends that she hung out with the majority of the time. But her absolute best friend had 4 legs, because it was her beloved collie named Ozzy. When Bree ended up leaving for college, it was really hard on her mom, Bridget, but they talked on the phone every day, either through a phone call or even were talking through text messages. She also made sure to maintain a really strong relationship with her brother, Brighton, because after her dad, Jeff, had passed away, it had always just been the 3 of them. And now Bree going to college and leaving was a major adjustment for the trio. But she always took time to give her brother advice or let him vent about things going on at home. She always stayed in communication. So on January 19th, 2008, Bree was staying in Reno on winter break from college. She had been really excited to reunite with her high school friends and wanted to make the most of their time together while everybody was there on break. So Bree and her friend Jessica decided to attend an annual event called SWAT 72. This was a huge weekend gathering for high school seniors and college-aged students. The event had organized winter sports activities, concerts, parties, and it was taking place at a resort called Squaw Valley in the Lake Tahoe area. The event was about 42 miles away from Reno, so later that day, Bree and Jessica went to their friend Katie's house, who lived close to the event. Katie lived with several roommates in what was known as the Big Orange House, and when Jessica and Bree got there, the girls all started to get ready together, excited to go to these parties together and really just enjoy break and be with everybody. Later on, they headed to the Sands Regency Casino Hotel. There, they caught a bus with the other college students to attend a concert at the Reno Sparks Livestock Event Center. Jessica had decided to head back to Katie's house early so that she would be able to get up for work in the morning. So she asked a random person who was also leaving the parking lot for a ride, and she texted to let the other girls know that she made it to the house safely. After a night of drinking and dancing, Katie and Bree returned to the hotel, and they decided to grab some food from an attached restaurant called Mel's Diner. They ended up ordering milkshakes, mozzarella sticks, which honestly just sounds like an amazing end to a night out with your friends after drinking. I know for me, it was always hitting the Del Taco drive-thru, just getting snacks, grubbing, recapping the night. Perfect. So after they ate, Bree and Katie got a ride from some male friends back to this Big Orange House. Now, at around 4 a.m., the guys watched to make sure that they entered the house, which was unlocked as usual, and then they saw them enter, so they drove away. In fact, since this house was always left unlocked, Katie and her roommates jokingly referred to it as a hotel. Their roommates would, however, lock their bedroom doors at night, but they kept that front door unlocked in case somebody forgot their keys, basically making the living room like a hotel lobby. So, not really the safest choice, but I guess a tipsy roommate being locked out also isn't safe, so they figured this would be the best solution, apparently. Remember, college-aged kids. So once they got inside, they made their way to Katie's room and then changed into their pajamas. They tried to stay quiet so that they didn't disturb Jessica, who was already sound asleep. After getting ready for bed, Bree told Katie that she wanted to go to sleep in the living room so that she could talk with her boyfriend on the phone and didn't want to disturb anybody who was trying to go to sleep. Now, it was really, really cold that night, though, so Katie gave Bree a pillow, 2 blankets, and even a cute little teddy bear to sleep with. They went to the living room, Bree put her stuff on the couch, which was right near the front door, and she was ready to call her boyfriend and go to sleep. The door had glass window panes that were facing the street, so anyone passing by could see into the house, especially with cars illuminating the area at night. But Bree had no reason to feel unsafe in a house full of her friends. So after setting up her makeshift bed, Katie told Bree to let her know if she needed anything, and then she went back to her room with her little baby Chihuahua dog and she fell asleep. Bree started texting her boyfriend Cameron, who she had been dating since freshman year at Santa Barbara City College, and he was kind of upset that she had gone out partying with her friends. So they argued for a little bit, but then after arguing for a bit, they both went to sleep. The next morning, when Jessica and Katie woke up, they started making breakfast, but they didn't see Bree on the couch. All of her stuff was there, so they thought that maybe she had just gotten cold and then went upstairs to sleep on one of the other roommates' beds, who wasn't home at the time. So as they were cooking breakfast, from over in the kitchen, Katie and Jessica then noticed a red spot on the couch pillow. But they didn't think much of it at first, because Katie thought that her dog had probably thrown up or something like that. A little while later, Katie briefly left the house to pick up her car from the casino where she had left it the night before. But when she returned, she realized that Bree still hadn't woken up. So she went upstairs to knock on her roommate's door, where she assumed Bree had gone into to go to sleep. But there was no response. At around 9:45 a.m., she tried again, but there was still no answer. Growing increasingly worried, Katie started pounding on her roommate's door, trying to make sure that Bree was okay. She knew that Bree didn't just leave because her phone, her shoes, her purse, and her clothing was all still there. But when she opened all of the doors upstairs, Bree wasn't in any of the beds. So growing more concerned, Katie called Bree's mom, Bridget, to tell her what was going on. And Bridget was extremely alarmed by this and said that she was going to come over right away. Then, shortly after that call, Katie called again. But this time she sounded hysterical. Katie told Bridget that that stain on the pillow wasn't vomit. It was actually blood. Now, as a mother myself, I can't imagine the fear that Bridget must have felt in that moment. And she told Katie to hang up right away and call 911. The first officer arrived at the house shortly after that 911 call was placed. At first glance, the house appeared like any typical college-aged student's house. There was no obvious sign of disturbance. He did notice that the couch where Bree had last been was still covered with one blanket, but the other blanket was on the kitchen floor, leading toward the back door. Now, strangely, that teddy bear that Katie had given her to sleep with was nowhere to be found. The officer also discovered that the pillow had not just one, but 3 bloodstains, also with saliva and mucus around them, plus smeared mascara. It was evident that Bree had been forcefully pushed into that pillow, and if the bloodstains weren't enough, there were bite marks on the pillow as well. Now, at that point, the investigators began thinking that Bree was probably abducted. A crime lab investigator from Washoe County photographed the interior and the exterior of the house, and also swabbed the back doorknob in hopes of finding DNA that could point to who took Bree. Bree was officially classified as a missing person, and the blood from the pillows was determined to belong to her. News of her abduction spread very quickly, especially because during the previous months, there had been several other violent crimes reported within just a 600-yard radius of Katie's house. The police began their investigation by speaking to those who were last seen with Bree. Surveillance footage from Mel's Diner confirmed that it was the last place that Bree had visited before going back to Katie's house. The police interviewed the male friends who had dropped Bree and Katie off, but they never actually entered the house, and they all had alibis, so they were quickly ruled out as suspects. Jessica told the investigators that she had hitched a ride from a stranger to avoid walking in the cold, back when she had left the party before Bree and Katie had. So of course the stranger who gave her a ride became a person of interest. But a few days later, he contacted police and volunteered to provide his DNA and anything else that they needed so that they could clear him. Now, it's pretty uncommon for someone linked to a crime to willingly come forward, but with his cooperation, the driver was cleared. So at that point, they had to determine who else had some sort of connection to Bree. Is there any way somebody else could be responsible for this? Maybe somebody she knew. Bree's boyfriend Cameron was at his new school in Oregon at the time, but he was also cleared as a suspect. The University of Nevada and the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children aided in the search, along with hundreds of volunteers. On January 24th, a vigil was held at Reno High School where Bree had graduated from, and over 300 people attended this vigil to show their support for her and her family. The amount of people concerned about Bree just really goes to show how truly loved she was. And people even wore Bree's favorite color, blue, as ribbons to raise awareness about her disappearance. Now, as the search continued, the lab was of course working on DNA swabs. And the DNA that had been swabbed on the handle of the back door of the house came back, and it came back as an unknown male. But when police searched their DNA databases, there were unfortunately no matches. So even though the number of search volunteers was growing, the police continued to come up empty-handed with their investigation. Toward the end of January, the Laura Recovery Center for Missing Children and the Polly Klaas Foundation offered their assistance, and a website dedicated to finding Bree was launched. The police were diligently following up on the thousands of leads that they had received through their tip line, but none of them led to Bree. The search for Bree extended across various terrains, including mountain areas, the Union Pacific Railroad tracks, and even the Truckee River. On January 31st, the police then turned their focus to a previous attack that had occurred toward the end of 2007, just a few months before Bree went missing. In that attack, a 20-year-old foreign exchange student was assaulted in a campus parking lot, and she recalled that her attacker was a white man with thick, meaty fingers. That sends a chill down my spine, even just saying that, like thick, meaty fingers. Meaty, M-E-A-T-Y. Oh, God, it gives me the chills. She had said that he put her in a chokehold, had covered her mouth until she lost consciousness, and then she woke up in a random truck parked in a secluded area. The attacker pulled the girl's hoodie over her eyes and told her not to look at his face, and then he violently attacked her in a gruesome sexual way before dropping her back off at home. And then after being dropped off when she knew that she was safe, she called 911 and reported the attack. Then she was swabbed for DNA. She had also been able to catch a brief glimpse of the vehicle, which was a 2005 or 2006 Toyota Tacoma truck. Now, as if meaty fingers wasn't a gross enough thing that this creep had or did, disturbingly, the attacker also kept her underwear as a trophy. The police felt like her attacker could be the same person who took Bree, so they decided to take a chance and compare the DNA that was found at the house to the swabs from this attack. And shockingly, it was a match. And when the police released this information, another victim came forward, and they disclosed a very similar attack in a campus parking lot from a few months before, and her underwear had also been taken. Although she was attacked from behind, she was able to catch a glimpse of his face, and she was able to help render a sketch of her attacker. This evidence confirmed that the same person was involved in both cases. The victims who had come forward were fortunately still alive, which gave Bree's mom Bridget hope that her daughter could still be alive as well. Bree's abduction gained national attention when her case was finally featured on America's Most Wanted on February 2nd. On February 4th, money was raised from the community so that the Washoe County Sheriff's Office could process close to 3,000 backlogged DNA samples in order to hopefully find a match. But again, they found themselves at a dead end when no matches were found, and her family just continued to beg the community to help.
Bridget, let's start with you. Where is this investigation right now?
We are making a plea out to the community here in Sacramento, across the country, to a family, a co-worker, a wife, a girlfriend that knows this man that abducted Brianna. It could be anyone that you least suspect, and we're asking you to really look at the time of the abduction or up until now, somebody that's been missing that just took off. If you have any suspicions whatsoever, please call our confidential hotline. It's on Brianna's Dennison.com, our website.
Bridget, do you believe that investigators have told you everything that they know? Are you comfortable with how this is all being investigated?
I'm extremely comfortable with how it's being investigated. I doubt that they've told me everything. I'm sure there's plenty that they're looking into. I'd like to speak to my daughter's abductor that it's time to give her back. We miss her and we love her. We know she's hurt, and it's time to give her back to us. We need her.
John, what do you know about the abductor?
Well, we know that since Brianna's abduction, a girl has come forward that was raped in October, and she's been able to do a compository sketch. The other two girls, one attacked and the other raped in November and December, have been able to supply the matching DNA to where they found on the crime scene of Brianna.
John Zanino, Bridget Dennison, thank you so much. We wish you certainly the best, and thank you for speaking with us today from Reno.
The search eventually expanded to a massive 100 square miles, with 1,700 volunteers diligently searching for Bree. Then, on February 15th, nearly a month after she vanished, a possible break in the case came from a man who wasn't even looking. Light industrial worker Alberto Jimenez had decided to cut through a vacant lot to get something to eat at a sandwich shop while on his lunch break. After he ate, he took that same shortcut through that lot to get back to work. But this time, he noticed something strange. It was a Christmas tree lying on its side, with what appeared to be bright-colored socks attached to feet sticking up from underneath. So thinking that it was possibly a mannequin, Alberto went closer to investigate, and he was horrified when he realized it was an actual body. He saw cuts on the shoulder, as well as a perfect bite mark on the right side of this body's face. Alberto ran back to work to tell his manager what he found, and they went back to the scene together and called 911. When police arrived, they already had a pretty good idea of who the victim was. While it had been there for a while and some animals had gotten to it, due to the colder weather, the body was fairly well preserved. It was in a field with a small drainage culvert, which is a pipe or tunnel that helps water flow away from an area, usually found in a ditch. Under the body's right knee were two petite-sized pairs of thong underwear. One was pink and the other was a blackish gray with a picture of a cartoon Pink Panther on it. The next day, police were able to confirm their suspicions, and they sadly announced that the body found was Bree Dennison. So the police wanted to figure out who the underwear found under Bree belonged to, since they were confirmed to not belong to her. Now, strangely, Katie recognized the pink thong as her own, but she said that she hadn't even realized that they went missing. This was especially odd, though, since Katie slept with her door locked, which kind of made it seem like since the perpetrator couldn't have stolen them when Bree was abducted and Katie was sleeping, then the perpetrator must have stolen them before the girls got home, or maybe even that Bree had borrowed them that night. It was just a very odd circumstance and odd detail. Regardless, they were unable to figure out who that black pair with the Pink Panther belonged to. After being found, when Bree's body underwent the autopsy, the results were disturbingly severe. Her body showed widespread bruising, and the marks on her neck suggested that she had been strangled. The internal examination confirmed that Bree's cause of death was strangulation, and investigators believed that the killer likely put Katie's underwear around her neck as a ligature. I can't even imagine how horrified and violated Katie must have even felt when she learned of that news. The agony of knowing what happened to Bree was absolutely excruciating, but her family's focus quickly switched to finding the person who did this and bringing them to justice.
Sadness engulfs the family of Brianna Dennison with the discovery of her body in a Reno, Nevada field.
I'm sorry that Brianna's not going to be able to grow old with my daughter, her cousin, and that we're not going to be able to share, rest of our lives together. But she will always be in my heart, and I love her dearly.
Angry. So that someone could do this to another human being and with no regard just throw her out.
The family wants justice and to find Brianna's killer before someone else is hurt.
I mean, it kills me to think that. And hurt, but angry.
Despite having DNA evidence and key witnesses from previous attacks, the police were struggling to identify a suspect, and the investigation dragged on for months. It wasn't until 10 months after Bree's death that a breakthrough finally came in the case. An anonymous woman reached out to the authorities, revealing that her friend had confided in her about finding multiple pairs of women's underwear in her boyfriend's truck. The individual from the tip also fit the description that had been provided by the police, and he had recently owned the same type of truck that they had been searching for. Even with the possibility of ruining their friendship, the tipster's willingness to do the right thing and report what they knew ended up significantly advancing the case. The tip led police to a man named James Bila, a 28-year-old ex-Marine with a very troubled past, and he had even actually been discharged from the Marine Corps for using drugs. James worked as a pipe fitter and had a 4-year-old son with his girlfriend named Carlene Harmon. Now, in addition to his military background, James also had a blue belt in martial arts. He was known for his outgoing personality and being the life of the party, but he also had a very notorious temper that often came out during confrontations. A detective on the case met with James and asked to collect a DNA sample to clear him as a person of interest. However, James refused and said that his girlfriend Carlene would be able to provide an alibi for him the morning that Bree was attacked. But when police spoke with Carlene, she was suspicious about what was going on and said that she didn't actually have an alibi for James that morning. She also said that for the last several months, they had been having problems in their relationship, and they were even sleeping in separate rooms. So through this conversation, and given what was going on with her and James behind closed doors, she felt like something was off, especially after the underwear that she had found in his car. So she gave police a sample of James and her son's DNA. It was ultimately determined to be a match with the DNA that was recovered from the scene of Bree's abduction. So on November 25th, while dropping his son off at preschool, James was arrested. He was charged with the first-degree premeditated murder, first-degree kidnapping, and the sexual attack of Brianna Dennison. He also ended up being charged with additional sex crimes with the use of a deadly weapon and standard sex crimes with first-degree kidnapping for the other attacks on the other 2 women who had come forward. After looking further into his background, police found out that James had actually been arrested in 2002 after he threatened the neighbor of his ex-girlfriend with a knife while he was intoxicated. This led to her filing a restraining order against him. However, since the incident was considered a misdemeanor, he was only ordered to get counseling to address his drinking problem. After James was booked into jail, his girlfriend Carlene confronted him about the accusations. Even though the video isn't the best quality, it clearly shows how confused and in disbelief Carlene was to learn that the man that she had known for years and even shared a child with could actually be a monster that she had no idea what he was capable of.
Did you do this? Oh my God, did you? Did you? I don't know if I should hit you or hug you. Did you shoot me? Did you look me in the face? Did you? I'm sorry you couldn't do it.
At this point, it doesn't matter.
It does, because I need to know.
No, it doesn't. I'm sorry. It's not. I just wouldn't want to be like my dad. I want to run coke.
Why can't you tell me you didn't do this?
I've said for a long time what I've needed to say, and it doesn't matter.
It does matter to me.
It doesn't matter.
It matters to me.
And if I told you I did it, you'd still love me and be with me. How are you going to be with me?
I can't be with you.
You can't. What the does it matter? And you get an attorney? Oh, yeah, that'll work. That's going to work out.
Because if you didn't do it, I will fight to prove your innocence. But if you
With what? DNA? Do you have any proof that you didn't do it? I don't have any proof I didn't kill JFK. So I mean, I wanted to be anywhere than at the house last night, and now I have to give my life to one more night there. I have to give my nuts to hold it. I'll never hold myself again.
I better go back out. I don't want to leave.
I'm sorry for everything I've done. I'm sorry for being a
On November 26, 2008, the Reno Police Department organized a press conference to inform the public that James was a match to that DNA that was found at the crime scene. During the conference, they revealed that James had sold his truck in Idaho around the same time that Bree's body was discovered. However, the truck was being returned so that it could be thoroughly searched and used as evidence in the case. The Washoe County District Attorney made it clear that he would be pursuing the harshest punishment possible for James, including the possibility of the death penalty. The trial began on May 12, 2010, with a jury of 8 women and 6 men. During the opening statements, the DA characterized James as someone who had graduated from serial attacker to murderer, due to the escalation of his crimes and the clear evidence that now this was a murder investigation, not just a sexual assault investigation. Now, on the other side of the desk, his public defender urged the jurors to approach the evidence with the cold light of reason, rather than their actual emotions. They also claimed that the prosecution's DNA evidence was inconclusive. The 2 survivors from the previous attacks were called to testify at the trial, and to protect their privacy, a significant amount of their personal information was concealed. The first survivor recounted the details of her attack, and when asked if the man who did it was present in the courtroom, she pointed directly at James. However, James's defense countered this by highlighting her previous inability to describe her attacker to the police. The DNA that was obtained from after her attack was deemed insufficient to definitively say whether or not it belonged to James. However, a medical examiner confirmed to the jury that James's DNA was found at multiple locations relating to the case, including on the exterior door handle at Katie's house, on the underwear that was used to strangle Bree, and on Bree's body itself. Prosecutors also presented James's cell phone records as evidence, which proved that he was in the vicinity before each crime that he was accused of. There were also internet history records of James visiting various sites related to thong fetishes, and even searching buy used dirty thongs, which is actually a thing, guys. There is like a whole market for selling dirty underwear. I personally find it disgusting, but whatever, to each their own, but it's a thing. During the trial, several co-workers from James's job testified that he was a hard worker and generally a really nice guy. However, his boss recalled that after it was reported that Bree's body was found, he noticed that James' behavior became unusual and also out of character. He ended up quitting his job and relocating to Washington, but he told his girlfriend Carlene that he had been laid off from his job, not that he had quit. His boss mentioned that he asked James about Bree, and as we can see in this clip, his response was eye-opening, to say the least.
I asked him how he felt about her being found, and his comment was that she...
And I know there was some colorful language. Say exactly what he said.
The bitch probably had it coming.
However, his boss just dismissed it as part of James' supposed sense of humor, even though I personally don't think any normal person would ever find that amusing. Carlene also took the stand, and she discussed the deterioration of their relationship in 2007, and how during this time, James would frequently disappear for days on end without any explanation. Before the jury started deliberations, James made the statement, "I just wanted to say I'm sorry that this incident has destroyed several families. I regret that no matter what you decide is my fate, that I will never be able to see my son grow up and be a father to him." Which is honestly probably something that he should have considered before, going on an attacking spree of different women. However, it was evident that the prosecution had a compelling case to prove that James was guilty, and it didn't take long for the jury to reach their conclusion. So on June 2nd, 2010, after just 2 hours of deliberation, the jury unanimously found James guilty on all counts.
We, the jury, in the above entitled action, having found the defendant James Michael Vila guilty of count 4, murder in the first degree, and having found beyond a reasonable doubt that an aggravating circumstance exists in this case, and that any mitigating circumstance or circumstances are not sufficient to outweigh the aggravating circumstances found, therefore, by reason thereof, set the penalty of sentence to be imposed at death. Dated the 2nd day of June, 2010, signed 4 persons.
During the penalty phase, the defense team did their best to convince the jury that James was not inherently a bad person. They emphasized his lack of a criminal record and portrayed him as a loving father who provided for his family. They also revealed that James had grown up in a very abusive household where his father regularly subjected his mother to physical violence. Even though James's father denied any harm toward his children, he and his siblings apparently lived in constant fear and chaos, even resorting to using buckets in their rooms as makeshift bathrooms due to their fear of leaving their rooms at night. Apparently, James's mother was handcuffed and physically abused by her husband on a nightly basis, and the children would hear the sound of a whipping belt and her pleas for him to stop. A psychiatrist who interviewed James's family characterized his father's behavior as unusual, abusive, and frankly bizarre. That a direct quote. And they also noted that verbal and psychological abuse was pervasive in the household. The defense even tried to highlight James's exemplary behavior as a model inmate while awaiting trial. However, the jury remained unmoved by these arguments and felt that James's troubled home life did not excuse or justify what he did, and it was their recommendation that James should be sentenced to death. On July 31st, 2010, James received not only a death sentence, but also 4 consecutive life terms for the other attacks that he committed. During the trial, one of the survivors faced James directly, and she said, "Mr. Bila, I wish you would look at me now." However, James, like the coward he is, kept his head down during her entire statement. She continued to say, "Despite the fact that you have committed the unforgivable against me, I forgive you. I forgive you not because you have asked for it, nor do you come close to deserving it, but because of who Jesus is in my life." Over the years, James has made 2 attempts to appeal his sentencing. The most recent one occurred in 2019, but his arguments were baseless and ultimately rejected by 7 justices. His defense centered around him receiving ineffective assistance of counsel, and he felt that his attorneys should have challenged the state's claims more vigorously, specifically when it came to the DNA evidence that was found at the crime scene. He argued that the DNA samples collected from Bree, the door handle, and the underwear weren't strong enough to link him to her death or to the other attacks. However, the court dismissed his claims, stating that he failed to present any evidence during the post-conviction hearing that could undermine the DNA and the other incriminating evidence. The court emphasized that there was more than enough evidence against James, and they also pointed out the fact that he left town immediately after Bree's death and sold his truck where fibers from Bree's clothing were found. These factors solidified the original court's decision that James belonged behind bars, rotting in prison until his last dying breath on death row. So today, James is incarcerated at Eli State Prison, awaiting his execution date, which hasn't been determined yet. We all know how long that process can take, but I kind of like the thought of him not knowing when his day is going to come. Just like Bree didn't know what he was going to do, and that he was going to end her life that day. Carlene, his girlfriend, had severed ties with James after the truth came out, and even though there haven't been any updates publicly about them, I do hope that she and her son have been able to move forward from this just horrific circumstance. In the years following Bree's death, her family has been working on rebuilding their lives. Both Bridget and Brighton have moved away from Reno, but they do make it a yearly tradition to go get sushi on Bree's birthday, because that was her absolute favorite. Other than that, talking about her and going over memories of Bree without her here is still too painful for them. The Dennison family has lived through several horrific tragedies, including the father, Jeff, taking his own life, and then someone else taking the life of Brianna. However, as if that weren't enough, the Dennison family experienced yet another devastating incident, exactly 10 years after Bree's disappearance. Bree and Brighton's cousin, Caitlin Dennison, went missing in January of 2018. And it's disturbingly ironic that just like Bree, Caitlin was just 19 years old. She informed her family that she was flying to Midland, Texas with a man that she met in Reno. According to her family, the day after her flight landed on January 9th, Caitlin called them using the Wi-Fi at a Walmart in Midland because her phone apparently didn't have any service. During the call, Caitlin expressed that the man was causing her to be in fear for her life. Unfortunately, she has never been heard from since. Authorities have confirmed that Caitlin boarded the plane with the man to Midland, and while he has since returned, Caitlin has not. The man has been questioned by police, but the case has not progressed any further, leaving Caitlin's fate completely unknown. I just can't imagine a family going through 2 situations like this, and I pray and hope that Caitlin's parents and her extended family are able to find her, or at least learn what happened to her. Brighton has said that the day that his sister's body was found was the most emotionally challenging experience of his life, but he has tried to move on so that he can live life to the fullest with his now 10-year-old son. He does this by embracing opportunities and not being held back by fear. Brianna's mother, Bridget, had decided that she would no longer be participating in interviews about Bree's murder. She doesn't want to constantly relive that trauma brought on by the selfish person who took her daughter's life. So instead, she's finding joy spending time with her son and being a grandma. This case, unfortunately, is just another illustration that even when you try and do the right things and take the right precautions, you still, unfortunately, are at risk and need to just always be hyper aware of your surroundings. Because Bree didn't drink and drive. She stayed in a group. She found a ride from someone she knew. She stayed in a house she thought was safe. So it's absolutely heartbreaking that this could happen to someone who was trying to be careful and do all of the right things. Many people also can't help but feel sympathy for James's son, who now is going to grow up knowing that his dad is a violent predator and killer. And the truth of the matter is, if James hadn't been arrested, he could have easily evolved into a serial killer, and there's no telling how many more lives could have been taken. Now, while this is something very common, it's frustrating to know that James has been on death row for almost 16 years since Bree's murder. So I hope that her family will get to see the day when his sentence is finally carried out. Although his execution won't bring Brianna back, it would mean that justice has been served. However, I'm curious to know your thoughts on James's upbringing and if you think that that had any sort of play in who he became, and should that have been considered as mitigating factors in his sentencing, or do you think that a bad home life is absolutely no excuse? It's like, sack up and be a human. You know right from wrong. I mean, I think we all know that there's absolutely never an excuse. You know right from wrong. You can be a good person or you can be a bad person. Leaning on your childhood as an excuse doesn't always play. While certainly there are things that sometimes affect your brain and your pattern and things like that, it's never an excuse and should never be used as an excuse after you are caught as being a predator and a murderer. But let me know what you think. I'm not a psychologist, so just my opinion. Be nice, don't kill people, right? That's my motto. So thank you guys so much for tuning in today and listening to Brianna's story and hearing her case. I appreciate you sticking with me. Until the next case, stay safe. Bye.